Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2, with the #1 Zerg player in North America fittingly in the red. We have Scarlet, facing off against one of the most creative Terrans out there in the blue. It's Ryung, in a best-of-3 Terran versus Zerg showdown as part of Wardi's 2025 Championship Tournament. And before we get started, it'd be incredible if you could smash that like button and maybe even subscribe. Let me kind of the algorithm. And Jimmy, what are we at? 1,759 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I can do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As Riong, playing with fire, at least with Zerglings here, a command center first, with, of course, no scout. He's a Korean Terran. There are some things that never change. And Ryung, while he has some adaptable build orders, there's only so much you can do when your first two buildings, well, your first three buildings are two command centers and a supply depot. The Reaper going to be sitting back at home. Ryung was already gambling that Scarlet wouldn't just do a pull first. And Scarlet has been known to do a Zerg rush or two in her time, but these are just normally timed Zerglings. It's just the exchange of having Zerglings showing up as the Reaper just came out is maybe flipping the script a bit from the Reaper harassing on the other side of the map. But the Reaper's there. Scarlet just disrespecting it entirely, not going to bother trying to grab it. And the SCV off to the side, it actually bounces it back, and the Zerglings get in, which is not very dangerous. But you know the most dangerous thing? Knowledge. Okay, and now Scarlet knows that there's a third command center on the way. A starport in production. It's not a lot of information, but it's not a little. It's just right. And exactly what she needs to know that there isn't a big marine push coming across. It's likely going to be Hellions and Banshees, the staple since StarCraft 2 came out, which is when Ryung started playing professionally. Scarlet wasn't too far behind then, alright? No spring chicken. I feel old just saying spring chicken. Moving on. I don't even know what that... I assume there are a lot of chickens. It's not the time. But when is the... Banshee with Cloak on the way. Knowing there is not additional barracks, that there's a third command center, allows Scarlet to already get 44 drones and counting. The creep spread has begun, and I doubt it's going to be slowing down anytime soon, because this is also slightly delayed. The Hellions are not going to be knocking on the door before the first round of creep is already spread out. Trying to come around the left side, but the Overlords are actually positioned, knowing the map is dark and potentially full of Terrans. Sending the Overlords out just far enough they can pull back if they need to, but able to position the Queens in order to block out these early Hellions and Banshees. But you gotta send them out. You gotta stay at the edge of the creep, because creep tumors are not known for having a ton of HP, and they're easily sliced away by a few, very astute Hellions and Reapers. So Scarlet doing a great job of boxing him out, but the Hellions still limiting the options for the Zerg in general to mostly staying at home and playing defense, which the Queens are perfectly happy to do. Meanwhile, they are on the way. 58 drones, and we'll see momentarily the second gas. No evolution chambers. I'd love to see mutas, but most Zergs are favoring the Hydraling Bane, especially with the semi-recent now buff to Banelings, rebuff after it was nerfed. Banelings with speed at plus 5 HP, back up to 35. But their Queens! Karen, no! One of the Queens gets incinerated, another one targeted down, and Scarlet, despite knowing the Banshees were a threat, did not have a Spore Crawler in position to deal with this. Another Spore just uprooted itself from the natural and is trying to move up now, but another Queen gets assassinated. And 3 Queens dead for just 3 Hellions. Solid early damage. But you know why? The Queens sacrificed themselves for the greater good. Scarlet has 68 drones, and I think she can hold on to the 4th base. The Queen's gonna try to knock out. Overseer not quite done yet. Transfuse slaps together some more HP on another Queen. And the 4th hatch is done. 68 drones. But no... Okay, wait. I'm sorry. The upgrades... One more try. The upgrades are on the way. 1-1 for both sides, and because Terran and Zerg upgrades are the exact same amount of time, you can tell the exact lead Ryung has. About 30 seconds right now, maybe 40. Hydralisk Den in production. The creep, despite the loss of 3 queens, seems like it hasn't slowed down too much. Already well past the first set of bases. Though, I think Ryung getting more than he thought he could have, and less than he probably should have. As Scarlet sacrificing the queens in order to get the base up more quickly. Losing the 4th base is not just a loss of economy. The Zerglings, maybe get a Hellion, maybe a Reaper. But it's not just a loss of economy, especially with this unit composition. It's a loss of production. It's a loss of larva. It's a loss of the ability to hold ground on the field because you simply don't have enough units to do so. Like, look right now. Scarlet has no larva in 500. That's probably because she has 85 drones, which many people might say too many, and I'm one of those people. But much like likes and subscribes, you actually can't have too many, as long as you can defend it. Now puzzle that out while Ryung's coming across the map, knowing he needs to put the pressure on as soon as possible, trying to hit that triple timing with Stim Combat Shield and the upgrades completing. He's got 12 Marines pumping out at a time. Is this an Octo-Rex? Indeed it is. 3 barracks without add-ons set up. Just trying to hit as hard as possible, as quickly as possible. And this needs to do damage, because Scarlet is already running away with this economically. That 4th base is fully online, the queen's out in front, but the army supply is in favor of Riong. Baneling speed is done. Scarlet does not want to engage until the 1-1 upgrades are complete. But this is all on creep. Riong has taken out some of it, but the creep tumors are efficiently spread. And the Lings and Banes, she went through the rocks down the center, so the pincer is ready, and here comes Scarlet from the north and south, and Riong is caught in the middle. And no amount of cartography is going to save him from that. 1-2, Medivacs get taken down. A 3rd one barely survives. The siege tanks, but another round of Marines, and the Banelings were not rebuilt. The Hydras don't yet have speed nor range. Riong took some heavy losses, but not enough to completely shut this down. The Banshee's a bit optimistic here. There's an Overseer right nearby. Scarlet restarts the creep. Part of the reason she was able to collapse so quickly on that army is because of the creep, of course. But the secondary part is the vision, which you have to remember is from the creep tumors. The creep itself doesn't have eyes, but the creep tumors do. The biological implications aren't important. The results and the effect is. And deja vu, here we go again. The Hydras from the south, the Banelings from the north, but a lot of Marines, and just that little spot without creep gives them enough ground to hold. But more Hydras, Lings, and Banes crashing through. 2 drones dead. I think the Banshee may have gone for the northern base. Riong gonna try to clear the creep, but Scarlet already taken the bottom left corner, and she has the 12 o'clock as well. All we're lacking is a hive. And that's kind of a big deal. I say it like it's one thing, but it's probably the one most important thing in the game. The infestation pit starts as soon as she throws the army back. But Riong has been untouched on his side of the map. The mules are closing the income gap dramatically. The stimulus check they're able to bring in, doing a lot to draw the income near even. And Scarlet down to 5 queens. You don't really... Maybe she could afford to, but you don't really want to build more after the first round if possible. But Riong off to the left, Riong off to the right. Scarlet down the center, which means she's not in position to defend the gold base expansion. Cancels at the last second. Meeting the Marines on the field. Riong forced to pick up for now. And we'll have the +2 upgrade advantage. Gonna be over a minute on this one. So a lot of time where Riong can be more cost effective. And Scarlet is maxed out with a maximum army supply of 110. As 88 drones just built a couple more things. That's just sad. More getting taken out. The creep a bit scattered, but still going forward. The command center optimistic as the Hydra is going to try to take it down. I don't know if they have the range to do so. Instead, Scarlet just going in for the kill right now. We don't mind retargeted on the Banes. Beautifully done by Riong. And the siege tanks, a few Zerglings slip in. Another attack, a little mistimed as Riong is able to block it out as well. But the Zerglings in the natural, gonna rip apart maybe 1 or 2 more SCVs. 3-3 is on the way. Ryung has held... Okay, the Zergling's still going. You go get him! Unfortunately, not able to get any more, but, I mean, look at the mini-map. Scarlet has grabbed all but the small home quadrant for Riong, and this time around, the command center won't survive the attack. The Widowmine's doing terrible, terrible damage. But some Banelings have been just a single Bane. Now, that's a little sad. But Scarlet has the rest of the map. She's got Adrenal Glands and 2-2 finishing now. The Widowmine's dragged into the Terran army as well. Hydra speed is done. They're just kind of slow. That's how they are. Without speed, it's just even more sad. And the Hydras have reached a critical mass that nothing but the majority of the Terran army can engage. There's really no option for drops with over 20 Hydras put together. Meanwhile, though, Riong working on 3-3. Well, Scarlet just started +3 Carapace. No other Hive Tech on the way. No Lurkers, no Greater Spire, not even any Vipers. Scarlet reliant on the Infestors and gonna get Adrenal Glands for the Zerglings. Riong scanning, but the creep is, like, you can look on the mini-map and see the spread on the creep tumors. Despite not having much energy or very many queens, she still managed to make a lot of difference there. And be very efficient. And now the Fungals holding things down to the Banelings rolling in. The Marines evaporate before them. The Overseers are non-existent, though, and the Widowmines are able to get continued hits. I don't know if the Overseer died in the fight. Probably did at the very start. And unable to break because those Widowmines are able to recharge and grab a few more kills on the way out. But Scarlet still with a massive, massive income advantage. The Infestors burrow away. No, the Hydras look in the wrong direction. And the Marines are looking the right one. Another dozen or so Hydras gunned down. The gold base is under attack yet again. Scarlet scrambling everything in order to defend. And the Infestors, the Serofestors here, might have an opportunity. Oh, but the Widowmines, no! Oh, no! And instead of getting the money Fungals, instead overdrafting. It made sense. But the Banelings rolling through. Still a lot of damage from the Hydras, Lings, and Banes. The Medivacs are sticking around, which means they could be targeted down, almost out of energy as well. And Scarlet, despite a significantly less than ideal engagement, is able to turn it around somewhat. But the Widowmines are recharging as the Overseers died first again. Oh no. Trying to drag out the mines. Kills some of the Medivacs with them. Friendly fire isn't at the end of the day. And no! I can't run. Was it bad? I think it was bad. The Widowmines, this Minecraft gameplay, really dragging Ryung back into a at least playable position. With the death of the 4th base, there never was a 4th base, all right? There's never been a 4th base, if you ask Ryung. There's just a bunch of bases playing Nomad like it's Age of Empires 2. Terran well suited to it. The mules will drop, and again, the income gap closes, putting Ryung's economy once again on life support. The mules, enough for the moment. And in fact, Ryung takes a supply lead. As Scarlet, she added some Vipers in. Maybe needs that rogue-like mass Overseer play. Ah, the Widowmines. I mean, the Widowmines. No, I can't lie. You could say that I have a dislike of Widowmines on frequent occasion. And that would be true. And a massive understatement. Scarlet selecting the Bane Mines, but unfortunately they don't fire a massive missile. It doesn't matter, though. Just... yeah. There we go, another group of Marines. You remember Scarlet's Bane Mines against Bomber? Well, it wasn't quite that good this time around, but it felt like, as the prophecy foretold, the Marines just wander right over it. They felt a disturbance. Oh my. But the Infestors, no! This isn't the campaign. Well, the fact is Scarlet's trying to hold on to the entire map. And it's impossible to be looking everywhere at once, even with 650 average APM. Just keeping quantity has a quality all its own. So far, Scarlet has lost 10,000 more resources, including 7,000 more minerals. Thankfully, she's mined 11,000 more minerals. And here are the Vipers. Not even a hope of ghost so far for Ryung, as he's been stuck on the low economy bio army and getting a lot done. The Widow Mines will go before they trigger. Quarantine's one of the medevacs. Parasitic Bomb on another. Very imperfect anti-air here, but another set of Hydra-Lings and Banes, though some of the Lings get ahead of themselves. Another mine clears up a chunk. Whoa, heavy losses on both sides. The Widow Mines will be taken out for now, and the gold base is contested yet again. Finally, the army gets cleaned up. The Hydra's taken down yet another medevac. But the Marines will stand tall enough, and a bunch of dudes with drugs and guns and a hatred of the what they call illegal aliens. Makes me feel right at home. Hell yeah, brothers. The Marines, you know what else does? The Marines stimming themselves almost to death. It feels better that way. Meanwhile, the medevacs, who are in a similar boat, somewhat ironically, will be able to boost away. And Scarlet is actually down 20 supply. But she just finished the Lurker Den and has Lurker range on the way, so... How many Hydras? Ryung might not realize how massive of a supply advantage he has, and it might be too late to take advantage, as now steps past the halfway mark of the map, and that's Scarlet territory. Despite the lack of detection and the Widow Mines coming out yet again, Scarlet knocks out another chunk of army. But again, this can't go on forever. Ryung has been very cost-effective with the mines, but 13 Lurkers are on the way, and a Nidus Worm is already completed. Ryung has a grand total of 3 orbital commands. Remember, there has never been a 4th base. Nobody, I've never heard of it. And 3 orbital commands is not nearly enough to scan for creep, drop mules, and scan for Lurkers, which are usually 3 different places. Meanwhile, another fungal comes up. And, well, the Marines are just melting away even before the Lurkers help them along. The Nidus in the main will be taken down, and now it's revealed. But now some more units will have to be anchored to the main base. A single Zergling is enough to prevent the landing of 1/3 of the command centers. Riong is... I love this. Riong puts his Ghost Academy. It feels like the right spot, right? Hasn't built any ghosts yet, unless their cloaking devices have gotten a lot better than I last saw. Another Nidus, a tactical Nidus, going down the front. He splits, he stims. Are there enough Lurkers to hold it? The Widow Mines help chunk through, and actually, no. Works through the Lurkers. The Infestors are scampering up again. But wait, there's more. Ryung actually has a huge amount of supply. But I think the Lurkers will fix that quickly. Ryung's at 191. Scarlet hasn't been maxed out for a while. The Widow Mines have taken their toll, but there's only 1 command center on the ground right now. There's no detection. There's no Ravens. There's no scans for at least a few more seconds. That 1 scan is so important. The orbital drops down, and dozens of Lurkers are taken out so far. 16 in total. Okay, 1 dozen, and then, you know, some more. Lands another one off to the side. The Marines and Marauders will force the Hydras away. This feels like it's been quite a death animation for Ryung, despite the supply. Ryung isn't... I mean, Scarlet isn't banking up money. She doesn't have this huge army. But Ryung, when you're on 3 orbital commands, that is... You're banking credit on credit, all right? At this point, there's nothing left to withdraw. The boys... Where are you going? They don't know either. A drop at the gold base that Scarlet's been mining for quite a while. The tactical Niduses. There are 11 Lurkers and counting. The Lurker switch came just in time. The Widow Mines continue to force quite a dramatic toll as the Lurkers eviscerate more. The Escape Nidus, maybe? How is this still doing damage? What a brawl of a game. Scarlet going with the full war of attrition. And Ryung unhappily doing the same. I don't think Ryung wanted to be in this position, obviously. I would say he's losing despite the supply, as there's no answer to the Lurkers. Scarlet somehow manages to spend all her money and lose it. But she can afford it with twice as many bases, with 2,000 more mineral or resources per minute of income. The SCVs. Ryung has done an incredible job of keeping his SCVs alive. He's only lost 28, which sounds like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm telling you, is quite minimal, considering the circumstances. But the jaws of Zerg are closing in, and they have those weird unhinged ones, so it's almost impossible to deal with. Scarlet has the entire map. The creep, you can't go anywhere. He steps outside of his base, and really what is outside of his base anymore? Because the main no longer is. The backstab, this Nidus has actually been here for a while, and the bio army wandering around like the kill squads in that campaign mission. But how many orbitals are left? Still all 3. But, yep, that's too many lurkers. Abandon your posts. Flee for your lives. There's nowhere left to run. Technically, there are still places left to fly. Just like a Bronze League hero Terran. And Ryung, he's had so much army supply. I don't blame him for looking for an opportunity. But it feels like Scarlet is not so much going to win the game as Riong is going to be suffocated out of it. Another Nidus. He's supply blocked 120 over 90. And Scarlet, another army on the field, blind and afraid. Scarlet with a decisive and a crushing game number 1. Despite the heavy losses, especially to the Widow Mines, it was not about how many Zerg you lose. It's about how many you have to replace them. And Scarlet, more than most, able to replace them on a It's priced in, all right? No matter what, the income goes up. Lose 50 Zerglings? Think of the Zergling manufacturers, all right? The hatcheries. Well, Scarlet with a strong victory in Scarlet fashion in game number 1. Riong, unable to really get enough footing to do anything but barely keep his head above the Zerg until he couldn't any longer. The fact he only had 3 orbitals, it's not enough. It's not enough. I've spoken. More math facts after the break. Just kidding. No breaks. All gas. Unless you have orbitals floating around. That doesn't work very well. Scarlet takes game number 1. Scarlet, also the lead balance designer for Zero Space. I believe they're having a playtest. Is it right? It's not right now. They've learned their lesson from some other recent aspiring RTS and not showing too much too early and getting bogged down. But I do think Zero Space actually has some of the most interesting. So apparently, Scarlet got her start in RTS, at least on a semi-widespread level. Not in StarCraft 2, but as a Warcraft 3 modder. So, having a lot of experience with Blizzard editing and all that, on and designing things that are a little outside of the box. So, I think Zero Space actually has one of the most interesting takes while still being similar to StarCraft 2 with their sub-faction system. And I really hope, as much as I like mirror matches, that Zero Space, that they use the kind of... I think there's a potential with 4 factions. This isn't an ad for Zero Space. I just like their ideas. So I guess it is kind of an ad for Zero... Anyways. 4 factions with 6 sub-factions, I think. And the sub-factions are kind of like mercenaries in StarCraft, in the campaign. So that you have a potential for, if I'm doing math again, 24 different combinations. Which, on top of, you know, different styles of maps and stuff, gives you a bit more variety than we've ended up with in StarCraft 2. As it does feel like we have, like, 3, maybe 2 or 3 different map layouts, and then 1 or 2 crazy maps that the pros always veto. That's it. And then, of course, your 3 races. Only players like Clem and originally Scarlet playing things like Protoss ever really messes with the formula at all. I think Scarlet probably the first player to ever switch race mid-series or mid-tournament and find success. I still remember MLG, back when they had real games. I want to say Raleigh. The Carolina one. Where she switched for one game against Dong Regu and did like a 9-gate charge lot all in. And won. And that was mind-blowing. And now Clem is just playing Protoss like 100% of the time against Terran and like 30% of the time against Protoss. So, but Scarlet 9-gated all in. 9-gate all in. So Clem could play no, this joke isn't gonna land. But the point being, I didn't really have a point. Scarlet's pretty cool. I didn't. Though, that was such an NA Zerg right there. What are spellcasters? The Vipers and Infestors were important, but I feel like that game could have been decided without them. There were a few moments where the Fungal made the difference, or the Vipers, but there's almost an equal or greater chance that if Scarlet had been focusing more on multi-pronged attacks, that she could have had even more success. So, every Zerg besides Cyril, the end result besides Cyril, every Zerg acknowledges that Vipers and Infestors are really good. But no Zerg besides Cyril, and probably not even Cyril, really wants to rely on them. Because you look away for a quarter second, and they die to a Widow Mine, or they die to Marines, or they die to Vikings. Or you forget about them in the fight. Or they're also, like, because they don't auto-attack and they're made out of tissue paper and tears, it's a lot. When you're already dealing with injects, creep spread, like, there's a lot of housekeeping for Zerg. There's a reason why it has the highest APM most of the time, is not because necessarily they are doing more, but the baseline level you need for Zerg is significantly higher than the other race, for the most part. Just because there's so much you have to do just to be eligible to compete. Between mostly things queens do, all right? They put a lot of work in. You're goddamn right. I know. Because they have to. I know. Calm down, Brenda. Don't look at me like that. But this time around, Ryung is doing... Well, it should be pretty obvious to Scarlet that this is mass Marines. Because a bunch of Marines walked over and killed the Overlord, so that really kind of gave the whole game up there. This time around... Yeah, it's been a full-on macro game, but... Scarlet is going to be much later on the upgrades. She's actually adding a Roach Warren, which can be better against just the pure bio styles, but kind of stalls out your later game tech a lot of the time, which is why many players favor skipping the Roach Warren and going straight to a Hydraling Bane, even if it isn't the perfect counter. It gets you the units you're going to be using more quickly. Roaches are a stopgap, but sometimes they're the best one. The Queens. Why are we all sitting in the same... How many... 9 queen... This seems excessive. Brenda, you just don't like competition. I'm just saying, this is a big investment. We cost 175 minerals now. You heard about queenflation. Stop calling it that. Nobody calls it... You just shut up, Susan. Sorry. I am backed out for him. Ranged attack on the way, and Ryung still sitting back. Finally has the medevacs done. And a full upgrade advantage. But Scarlet... It's only 6.5 minutes in. This is not a small map here, White Rabbit. Our Matrix map. And, yeah, continuing across. Riong with the scan. The Zergling counterattack is on the way. Not quite enough, especially with 1-1 Marines. Definitely enough to defend, though baits out the stim. A few roaches in production, and Scarlet did go for ranged attack, which means he wants to invest in the roaches. There's no Hydra Dead. Going for a hive with no Hydra Dead is kind of crazy. I guess just for Vipers? But does Scarlet already have 2 5th base on the way? Riong is not doing the 8 racks all in. bit more of a bio-curious composition with 68 SCVs, 4th command center, and 2nd factory on the way, acknowledging that the roaches are quite a danger. Ryung, I think, forgot combat shield, but now has started it. A bit late, but much better late than never. Though combat shield won't even be done for the 2-2 upgrades finishing, which is quite a big mistake. The queens can't really hold it together. The upgrades are not enough. And eventually, but again, the queens will absorb the damage so nothing else has to. Which means, well, you know, there's only one Zerg unit that doesn't cost larva. So, saving a lot of larva with the queens one way or another. Spore along the side. Nothing in the main, though. Tries to drop a couple Marines on the high ground, but Scarlet already has a creep tumor for vision up there. Riong keeping things busy. Going to see the hive and probably get a little stressed out about it. Uh-oh. Tries to boost by, but restricted lair space. Got it. Oh, okay, Brenda, I know. Meanwhile, the Marines and mines. Ooh, one of the queens gets slammed, but again, it could have been worse. Scarlet just shoving this out of the way. And Ravagers can help take out the Widow Mines with Corrosive Bile, even if you don't have detection. So that might be part of the thought process. The scouting SCV. Totally... What do you... What? Anyways, Ultraless Cavern is on the way as well. Optimistic. Meanwhile, the Bioweapon... Riong doing a great job of keeping Scarlet busy throughout both these games. But I can't help but feel like Scarlet has already gotten such an economic lead. She's got 2,300 minerals and 800 gas in the bank while getting upgrades. Hive is already done. She's maxed out, kind of the key part here. Widow Mine, there was a Widow Mine. The hatchery kind of just died. I was glossing over that part. I didn't realize he was targeting it, but gets out. The creep has been held at bay, and Riong again is going to be able to max out, but there's no ghosts. There's no liberators. There's no late-game options. He's relying entirely on the momentum of the Marines, the Marauders, the Mines, and the Medevacs. But that is something, that is a fickle thing. One fungal away from being completely broken down, especially with the Vipers in tow and the potential for Parasitic Bomb. Corrosive Bile, watch out! The Infestors almost wandering into the Corrosive Bile on top of the Widow Mines. But Scarlet kind of just blinking them away. That is just too much bile. Even with the roaches. Is it enough? No, that's not enough, actually. Yeah, so, no. Not 2-2 versus 1-1. The Banelings help. Yeah, the Banelings are. Oh, the big fungal down the center. But wait, there's more. Another one at the back will help the units. The Banelings move commanded by. And Scarlet doing terrible, terrible damage. But again, Riong is able to put so many boots on the ground. The Ultras are on the way. Chitinous plating is nearly complete, and Riong didn't actually start the 3-3 upgrades. Scarlet is only on 1-2 for all units. It's strapped for gas here. But the Ultras... In just a few seconds, there's no real answer. Parasitic Bomb. Riong is at near 200 supply, but Daddy's home. Ooh. The Ultras are a deadly threat, especially considering the upgrades. Vipers. Ghost Academy's on the way. And we'll see. Riong at 200 supply. And banking money. So there is an opportunity. There is a chance that if the Ultras just go down immediately, there's the space. Like, Riong needs to trade out some of his supply. He can't be maxed out right now. That's a mistake. Needs to actually get rid of some of the bio without losing a critical mass. Because he needs to build ghosts. He needs to already have ghosts. Does he have any? 0. Which is not very many. Like, at this point, you just got to be throwing units away. Ryung. Because there's a huge risk of losing a fight, and then the Ultras just bashing down the rest of everything, because there's no real answer. I'm sorry, my Scarlet bias is showing, but Ryung is smoothly working into the late game here. Double Spire for Scarlet, though. Fully ready to knock down any Liberators. The Widow Mines will be targeted. Is that just one Corrosive Bile, which is almost enough? Another. Does he see the worm sign? Does it matter? An incredible, a disgustingly huge fungal. Oh, no. Oh, it's... Oh, the humanity and the parasitic bombs. Everything dies. 60 supply. Gone. Completely, totally annihilated. And another base dead. Vindication. The entire army and the entire economy just executed on the spot. Riong dipped 70 supply despite having enough money for full production. 2 bases completely slaughtered. The entire army gutted. The reinforcements might be enough to hold for now, but Scarlet is maxed out with 4K, 2K in the bank. It is an unmitigated, absolute, and comprehensive disaster for the Korean Terran. And Scarlet, I doubt, was prepared for it to go so well, but certainly won't complain. Ryung needed to have some ghosts back at home when the Ultras first showed up. He sat on a... He had cavalry against machine guns. Somewhat ironically there, but... he did not have the tools for the job, and just producing them after the fight has left him in a dire position, to say the least. It's a disaster. Now the ghosts are out, but Scarlet can afford to throw dozens of units at each one and still come out ahead. Just gonna go down the center, why not? As that's the last outer base. The Corrosive Bile zoning out the snipes. 44 SCVs. Riong is out of money. He's half his command centers in the air again. Scarlet. Oh, and the ghosts out in front! They tried to get the EMP, and they did. But a little late. Gonna chase the army, and again, kind of forced into this bio ball all in. The infestors were knocked out of energy, but Scarlet seems to have adapted to the last game, whereas Ryung, he had the opportunity, he got all the infrastructure, but he didn't build the army in time. It's still 134 army supply against 116, but Scarlet's rebuilding again. Still has a bank. Some Banelings. The Zergling counter, though that Widow Mine could be devastating. It won't be. Or it might be, actually. Yeah, it's pretty rough. Meanwhile, more Widow Mines down the center. There's actually no detection here. Good Corrosive Bile, gonna knock out a couple mines. Scarlet still, like, there's a tiny risk of this army just running it all over. But now more Infestors coming up. The Medivacs are pretty much out of energy. You can only stim so much. And Scarlet just rolls over Ryung with the Ultras, Lings, and Banes for a decisive 2-0 victory. You can tell Ryung knows what he wants, but he doesn't necessarily know when to get it. Scarlet, well, bringing us smoothly into our anti-spoiler series against a little-known player, Rogue. Yes. In Wardi's 2025 championship, make sure to check out Wardi's channel, by the way, of course. Pretty much all the top players. Well, Cyril didn't participate, but otherwise, it is pretty much all the top players for a $10,000 prize pool at the end of the year. So, and Scarlet, well, showing up, for sure. And not just in the literal sense, but in the... You know what I meant. All right, you got it. Scarlet versus Rogue. We'll sneak our ZVZ in. But if there were 2 players to watch, it might have an interesting slash entertaining take on Zerg versus Zerg. Well, And also, I would have said Ryung versus Scarlet. I don't know what their actual rankings are. Neither is particularly high, even though they might be more recognizable names. Neither has played very regularly over the last year or two. But I would have put about even odds. Somewhat puns intended. But Rogue is a definite favorite, though ZVZ is ZVZ. The knife fight in a phone booth, where both players can see pretty much anything that comes out of the base in the early game. But many of those units are so fast, you can't react if you left it too late. So, you know they're gonna stab you. It's just a question of whether you can stab them harder, because blocking is not a viable option most of the time. Interesting that Scarlet had a drone out so far. Not sure. Was she... maybe looking for the earliest pool? Like, if the Zerglings were sneaking in? Because they could have snuck out past the Overlord in the early game. Third base for Rogue. Now, Zergling speed for both sides. Scarlet taking a similar third, which is actually going to put them a little closer together. The Zergling duel. And the Queen coming down to help box out. I am interested. I mean, ZVZ looks very much the same usually, until it doesn't. Though sometimes it just devolves into roaches drooling all over each other for a while. But with what I've noticed is with the change to the Spire is now 50-50 less minerals and gas, and also builds 5 seconds quicker. Has quite an impact on ZVZ, where mutas were probably the most popular because only spore crawlers are able to take them down easily. So that means the threat of mutas and how quick they can be on/over the field is much greater than it was in like 5 seconds. But in ZVZ, where the economy is relatively low and the timings are incredibly thin, those 5 seconds and that extra 2 banelings can make a difference. It makes going mutas as like an alternative / follow-up option to roaches a lot more common. Or the other way around. Usually you either hit them with a roach timing, follow up with mutas while they're setting up for a counter timing, or you start with the mutas and then by the time they're dealing with them in the air, you have your ground army to kind of crush through. Or you just build a bunch of roaches. Those are the top 3, really. The Zergling gets in, the Baneling. Scarlet will see there's no lair. Did Rogue not even... Rogue noticed! But apparently doesn't have object permanence. Rogue... The Zergling's still in there. This is huge. This is I cannot stress. Yeah, the Zergling gets in, spots the literally shift queued Scarlet. Oh, that is... It's gotta be muted. It's definitely mutas now. When you have a 60-second advantage on your lair, that's a Spire advantage almost. Oh, yeah. Give me my mutas. Roach speed is on the way. That doesn't, there's no Evo chamber. I guess it could also be a roach. Oh, a baneling! A baneling and then a single ling! I mean, and a couple more lings get in. She turned the single ling into a bane. Wow. And it actually did something, which is kind of crazy. And there we go. The Spire. Actually, a lot later than I thought it would be, but Scarlet gonna go with the roaches, and then Mew to follow up. And Rogue is going straight into the Spire. So, both of them with roach speed. Rogue will have +1 on his roaches, but slightly delayed on the Spire. And Rogue has also... Well, he's actually mined less gas, 200 less gas here, which is not usually a huge point. But again, each 100 gas is another muta. And one muta can spiral a snowball quickly because of the muta glaive attack, which bounces off other mutas and does potentially more damage. So getting a critical mass as soon as possible is a huge deal. The roach count, 19-9 in favor of Scarlet. She's got roach speed done well before Rogue ever could. And this base was already softened up by Zergling, so Rogue can't afford to back off very far. And he doesn't really have any advantage here. The +1's not done. None of the tech is done. Scarlet hitting this pinpoint timing. And not luck, but instead, 100% concentrated power of will. One reason to remember the name, of course. 12 drones dead. Rogue refuses to give up the base, but it may cost him even more than the hatchery. 7 mutas on the way for Scarlet, while Rogue is forced into continually building roaches. Wow. By the time the roaches counterattack, there should, and Scarlet building enough roaches to body block out. Scarlet's already going to have the mutas overhead. Gonna start softening up the roaches. Thinking that, especially with +1, without the mutas here, there's a chance they could get the damage done, but... And that's it! Scarlet scouts better, executes, and takes the win. It's that quick. I would say that easy, but clearly not. The timing was perfect, and Rogue just outclassed. The fact that she was able to get into the main base and scout the lair timing is the biggest deal. Not a small deal, not a medium deal. Huge deal. And the rest of the game was built off of that single link. Alright, surprising how much is relying on it. But again, Scarlet up 1-0. And looking better than we've seen in quite a while. I mean, game 1 against Ryung was painful and impressive at the same time. The amount of damage Widowmines did, while still Scarlet maintaining a stranglehold on the map. Impressive. I feel like Rogue was playing the meta without scouting. Like, what Rogue did, the timings, were what you do on the ladder. Just your default build. Scarlet adjusted for what she scouted. So, I mean, it should help, but you do have to know exactly what you're trying to accomplish if you're going to let your opponent get an economic advantage. All right, now Scarlet 1 game away from a clean sweep of 2 top Korean players. But it's Rogue, so Rogue does not get tilted. Sometimes has some curious strategies. Still using the Maru portrait, by the way. Has been ever since he took his head in GSL. I think it was multiple times, but there was one in particular that was extra painful. So far, nobody venturing an early pull. Interesting, the exact same maps, by the way. Taito Citadel and then White Rabbit. This isn't a standardized setup. That's what we ended up with for both matchups. I guess they are 2 of the most aggressively standard maps. Taito Citadel is a little bit different with the layout and the gold base, but White Rabbit is a very, very standard map. The look... it's quite unique, but the layout with your third base options, there's the base down the center that's kind of odd with the rocks, but you have the outlying bases that are further away, usually, from your opponent, which makes it oftentimes more macro-oriented. And the fact that there's a ramp going up to the third and a choke point at the other. Just the sheer rust distance. There's a lot of things. You can tell by the way it is. Isn't that... what? Is that legal? Says the thumbnail. Scarlet finishes a queen. Immediate lair. Immediate. Before speed. I'm like, how? Skipping Zergling speed. So the queen's at the front. Now, thankfully for Scarlet, Rogue didn't even attempt to send lings across. I lied. There was one. I think the other one died to queens. No. Where's the second lane? They come in packs of 2, all right? Buy one, get one free. Is this just a muta? It works so well. Let's try it again. Yes. There's no way. That has to be mutas. Mutas. No, that much gas is mutas. Hey, it could be a roach speed all-in, but that roach horn is... I think she's trying to sell a roach timing, because that's a quick roach horn. 330? Rogue is getting his, but only after scouting Scarlett. There's the Spire. Straight to mutas. Okay. They work so well. Let's just start with that. And that is a wall, I believe, right? Like, this little doodad there is wider than it looks. All right. You should call your mother sometime. Spire's halfway done, and no Overseer from Rogue, obviously, because he doesn't have a lair done. The Spire is going to be done before Rogue's lair. There's only going to be like 5 mutas. She's going for +1 melee. Is the roach speed a fake? Because Rogue will see the roach horn having a little seizure, like, which all Zerg buildings do when they're producing. But you can always cancel it at the last second, or just cancel it and keep restarting it. But here come a bunch of Zerglings looking to box out. It's clearly a timing. Scarlet is selling a roach timing right now. Hard. Like, she's doing everything she could do to sell a roach timing. But will Rogue be able to figure it out? An Overseer on the way? But the mutas will already be out by the time the Overseer completes. Or within like half a second. And they just flap across the map. They were spotted, right? Right? I don't know if Rogue was looking at the Overseer when the mutas flew by. There was no notification. It's already too late to build spores. Oh, he didn't see it. He didn't see it until he actually went by the Spire, and by then it was too late. The mutas just going straight for the drones. Now, Rogue has some to burn right now. I mean, you don't want to burn them, but he can lose several and still have a lead, especially considering there's a 3rd base done. And Queens are quite good against smaller amounts of mutas. At some point, there's a critical mass, which must be respected. But, like, 15 or so mutas with +1 is when you kind of need Hydras. Or if there are Zerglings tanking some of the damage. And those Zerglings have +1. Scarlet was getting an upgrade out of that evolution chamber. It just wasn't the one I think Rogue expected. Another Overlord goes down. Rogue nearly supply blocked as well. Scarlet with total map control. The Mutalist well known for it. And so far, 3 more mutas. It's going to be mass muta. Now, this is a full split. Game 1 was Roaches and mutas for either side, but Scarlet getting the better end. This time, it's Rogue trying to turtle up. And there's... all the tech is at the 3rd. So if Scarlet breaks this base, literally the entire tech tree is here. So, well, if you lose the 3rd, you probably lost the game at this stage. Anyways. Diving on top, going to go straight for the Queens. The Spore Crawler does... a redonkulous amount of damage to the mutas explicitly. It does extra damage versus biological air. There's only one race that has biological air. Trying to use the glaive, successfully doing so. Oof. Another muta gets picked up by the Spore. This is getting a little unwieldy. 6 mutas dead. Scarlet only has 50 drones. Rogue has weathered the mutas quite well so far, despite the frantic defense. Spore Crawler at the front, and now there's more zoning spores in the main. Didn't even bother taking the gas. Oof. Some of the mutas. So, there's a lurker den done. There's an infestation pit, but no hive. There are 2 schools of thought. There's one, just try to hit a quick lurker timing. You need lurkers because mass banelings will just roll the Hydras, quite literally. What are those dropper lords for? What is this? Is she gonna drop banelings on Hydras? I got some nerd chills. I mean, it could just be for a counterattack, but there's also a chance this is for dropping bait. That would circumvent lurkers entirely, because overlords also fly. Yeah, sure, a drop in the main would be cool, but even dropping on banelings would be way cooler. And what's cooler than being cool? Ice cold, correct. They're headed towards either way. I would love to see dropper lords to counteract lurkers. At some point in Hive Tech, Vipers become too strong. Parasitic Bomb does 99% of a Muta's health. It actually does 100% technically, but they heal just enough with their regen to survive it. But a Parasitic Bomb and then a second one to follow it up is deadly. And usually you don't just have one if you're able to get Vipers out. Scarlet now has 4 bases, though. Oh, she's up to 80 drones. I'm like, is the economy? Yes, 80 drones now. Rogue optimistic. I don't think he's going to get away with this base. Scarlet, yeah. With 25 mutas against 25 Hydras. It's just going to be the dropper lords. I desperately want the Baneling drop on Hydras. More Banelings rolling in, but the Lurkers are already here, and the Banelings will be eviscerated immediately. But the Mutas can just fight. They can stack up like all air units through space magic and an ignorance of physics. Another hatch down. The drop is loaded up. And there's almost no vision on the edge of the main. Will they drop there? In fact, if Scarlet baits a smaller amount of Hydras, the Zerglings get in. Either we're just going straight forward, going for the spores, allowing the mutas to just ransack the base itself. Wait, the hive? Oh, that works. That's one way to deal with it. You can't build Vipers without a hive, so she just kills the hive. And now you're restricted to stock lurkers and no Vipers. Infestors might be a stopgap here, quite literally, but... Well, that solves that problem. Huh. Are there any overseers? There's a single lurker. And, well, the Banelings, some of them getting through, isolating the Hydras. The Mutas will slice away about half. And Rogue is on borrowed time now. The +2 Mutas doing a lot of damage. Just sniping off lurkers, and then eventually that opens up the way for the Mutalisks. And not so eventually. Right now, the lurkers are all dead. The Spore Crawler repositions. The Banelings are rolling in with no lurkers to back it up. It's far too little, and I think it's too late. The Mutas will win the day. There's no more anti-air. Scarlet. Wow. And not just wow, Scarlet's pretty good, like, inspired. I don't know if, Rogue did not play poorly. That's the key part here, is Rogue did not make big mistakes. Scarlet just outplayed him. Oh, that, yeah. The Mutas, the crowbar to open up the bases, and then, of course, the Lings and Banes to slip through the gaps. And then against Ryung, with that just suffocating creep spread and attrition-based Zerg, followed up by a decisive ultraless timing. Scarlet is back. And I certainly hope for more than just Wardi's 2025 tournament, but I'll take what I can get. Wow. Okay, no more anti-spoiler yet. Hopefully you enjoyed the anti... I honestly think I like that series more. But we're never going to put a ZVZ first. I value likes and subscribes. And anyways, hopefully you enjoyed as much as I did. Probably not more. That's probably not possible in this one. But thank you to Wardi. As always, make sure to check out. I think he's still raising money to increase the prize pool for the Wardi 2025 Championship. And otherwise, if you got the means and motivation, be awesome to check out Patreon or YouTube membership. But I hear liking and subscribing and hyping are still free. at least for now. So congratulations to Scarlet. Let me know which matchups you'd like to see. And make sure to check out this video that Jimmy picked out for you. And I'm moving up. I'm hurrying up. Thank you for watching. I hope I made your day a little bit better. I'll see you next time. Good luck. Have fun. Stay chill.